Hi, this is Shoshana Burgett from ColorKarma.com. I'm here with Ryan Stanley, Senior Director of Color for PVH, and Kristen Dettoni, founder of Design Pools. Thank you very much for joining us in part two of this lovely conversation.
Good to be here.
So, Ryan and I have, we understand all of these different technologies and spectrophotometers, and you have little tiny handhelds to these massive things that measure and control color. What do you use as a designer for, managing your color?
So I use the spider to calibrate my computer screen, which I like it because it's fairly inexpensive and very reasonable, especially if you're a single employee and paying for everything, because all the tools can add up over time.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the time when I could actually afford Pantone books, and that was even, I hate to say it, even off of eBay. So it was 2 years past, and I was like high-fiving myself for being able to afford them. But also a lot of times, so the spider is the main tool that I use as far as like my computer calibration. And then it really just depends on what my clients are coming to me as far as what they want me to color match with or color match to, which is why Pantone I think is really important because that's heavily used within the industry. But a lot of times they're matching to paint chips. So whether it's Sherwin-Williams, Behr, and that can be a little more challenging because they don't have those preset libraries within Illustrator to choose from. So I have to get a little creative with that.
With your spider, what kind of monitor do you use?
I just have a Mac, a basic desktop Mac, and have that set up. I think the nice thing about Spider is I think I have it set up to calibrate once a month, and it sends you a little reminder. And I think the last time I upgraded, they even had a good sale that I got like $30 off. So
there you go.
It's the tool. I don't know that. I know when I first started investigating, there were a lot of expensive tools out there, but that was one I found that was reasonably priced and I think works fairly well. But I'm also not. I'm sending my stuff to other printers. So, and I'm not, even if I'm printing something out on my basic HP, nothing's calibrated to my printer at home. So I know if I'm printing stuff out just to kind of get a feel for color, that it's going to probably print totally differently, whatever substrate they're printing on.
So let me ask you a question then. So you're designing everything digitally. If you print it at home on your little inkjet, that color is off, right?
Yes.
So you never show that to your customer, correct?
No.
So everything you have, though, is then produced at your printer.
Yes.
Are you telling them to execute to a standard?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of what happens is my business is coming through them. So for example, there's one company I work with that prints on faux leather, and they'll send me a request to say, hey, I have this pattern. I mean, they have a pattern in their library and they want to match it to say 3 Sherwin-Williams colors or something to that effect. And so usually what I do before we even print, of course, because, making samples is expensive, I'll create the color on my computer and then send a PDF with the disclaimer that, hey, every monitor is different. So exactly. But it's just really more so they can see color placement on what
layout.
colors are going where.
Yeah.
Because sometimes depending on the colors that they're choosing, if they're the same, if they have very similar value, then sometimes you might even lose the graphic altogether. So I just want to give them an idea of okay, this is what you asked for. Is this what you want before we go to print? And then what happens is I will send that digital file to the printer, typically in an AI format. And then they actually have the paint chips there as well that they're, as they're printing out, they're tweaking on their end. So if it's really far off, they may come back to me and say, can you help shift this a little bit to more blue or more red? Or they'll send me a swatch and I can kind of go off of that all again on my computer.
So the initial one's more like a gut check. And then when it goes to the facility for execution, they're matching more matter-of-factly to the Pantone or the paint company chip that they have a reference to.
So they hone it in.
Yeah, and I try and get as close as possible. So with the paint color chips that are not within Illustrator, what I do is and this is really the most inexpensive way possible. So I have this lovely photographic color card. So I'll take the paint chips and put the color card next to it and take a photo with my iPhone. And then I bring that into, I know, right? I know, but it works. It works. Because again, I'm not the final person. So then I take this into Photoshop and I match to the white so that everything is color consistent. And then I'll take that JPEG, drop it into Illustrator, and then do my color picker off that to get the right, as close as I can, obviously digitally, to the colors. Worst case scenario, I'm almost embarrassed to say, but if I don't have the paint chips and they can't supply a paint chip, I'll go online and just do like a screenshot of the paint chip from whatever company they're asking me to go from.
And then copy the RGB values.
Yeah, I mean, as close as I can. I mean, that scares me the most. But again, really, I think what's happening is, I mean, I'm getting, let's put it this way, I'm getting color close. The printer's getting color correct.
I might even say
I like that
last
sentence.
method you called out might have the potential to be one of the most accurate ways. Talking to random people in the industry, Pantone or Chroma, CSI, whatever color standard you provide, I'm sure paint companies managing the color values themselves, typically, if they're really paying attention to it, they're going to export the right hex values onto whatever browser, so you can see, regardless of the calibration of your monitor, right? If you have a spider, if you don't, but they're going to try to push the right values to their e-com business, right? So if you pull RGB values off of the online values, chances are you're probably pretty close to whatever primary light that they're comparing their stuff against.
Well, that's good to know, because that was all totally makeshift and trying to figure out how to solve a problem where I didn't have a library to choose from.
And for big brands, I can agree with that. But when you get into medium and small companies, they may not have that defined at all. So, that depends on who's designing the website. And if they have those standards and have that organized. Some places just have a spot color and RGB values, right? So they have to have
under a single illuminant.
Yeah. Exactly. So they have to have all of them. Do you send to your printer both the standard with the digital file?
You mean the color match, the standard that they're trying to match to? I mean, usually they're the ones sending it to me. So they're the ones getting the request, and then I'm doing the design work for them. So technically, they usually already have something in their hands.
So the faux fur, right? If they want you to match faux leather, they want you to match a certain thing.
Yeah, well, so a lot of times what will happen is usually the interior designer will provide the swatch.
Yes.
So they'll send it to the printer. Mm-hmm. And then in return, they'll, I do have a lot of references. Like, one great thing about Sherwin-Williams and Behr, and God, I can't remember all the paint companies, but there's so many good ones that, they have all these amazing fan decks and libraries that they give out. So, or you can go to their stores and,
go take the
chips out. Right.
So, exactly. Yeah. So I'm a frequent visitor of Home Depot, by the way. So, so no, it's easy to get your hands on an actual chip if someone can't, provide it.
So again, it's almost like you start with a range, and then to what you said earlier is the printer is honing it in to a specific number standard, and then from there, production.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I'm not that, I don't know. I work with a lot of different printers because, for different products. So, and I don't really know a lot of times, like, how they're taking my design, what process they're using, how they're getting it even from, their computer to the printer. I just sort of follow their direction and their lead as to what they need me to do. And, if they need me to color shift and things of that nature.
Do you specify a Delta E, or they have that specified because you license?
They have that specified.
So,
yeah,
okay.
Everything that it's funny because a lot of times too, when I'm working with printers, especially if I'm developing a new collection and it's not, I don't have a set idea of like the exact shade of blue. I can see it on my computer knowing full well it's going to ship. So a lot of times when I'm sending things, and this is where you're going to think I'm like every manufacturer's dream, I'm like, hey, I just need it blue. Like, I just don't want it to come back red. So, like, that's how flexible I can be sometimes when I'm developing something.
Well, again, what you had said earlier in our previous video is you've worked on both sides. So you respect and have an understanding from both the design side and the manufacturing side. So you know when you have to really focus on a tolerant and when you just need can you just give me a blue?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the awesome things I think you called out is the fact that regardless, you're matching to a standard, right? Mm-hmm. So if you know that it's not going to get printed out accurate, if you know that it might not showcase on your screen accurately, right, depending upon who's looking at it, where in the world, on what screen, in some way, shape, or form, you're still referencing a defined standard, whether it be the Bayer, Sherwin-Williams, Pantone, whatever chip. Like, okay, this is to show you that it's green, but it's green 1, 2, 3 by so and so. This is what you need to match. So there are defined tolerances against it. That's one of the challenges working through with the design teams at PVH, getting the teams to understand and digest that. The goal is to call out a standard to be matched going forward.
Right.
So then it can be let go. You can pass the baton to the execution team, and then they can just run with it. They don't have to constantly keep on coming back for a verification.
Yeah, and that's that line you draw in the sand of once it's a standard, we now measure and go to numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So that balance.
Yeah. The other thing that I found too, where we do a little bit of back and forth is, at least for the few of the printers I work with, they can shift the entire design. Like they can shift the whole design like a little bit yellow or shift the whole design a little bit blue. But, you know, if you're calling out like 3 specific colors within a design, and 2 of the colors are dead on, but the 3rd color is a little more blue, that's when they'll come back to me and say, hey, can you shift this one individual color? Because we don't have the resources to the process to pull certain colors out and shift them. It's either like all or nothing when they're printing.
If they have like fall-on colors for a print, what you're talking about?
Wait,
yellow and blue to make green. So if one of them has to change, it might mess up some of the other fall-on colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's when they'll come back to me and ask me to make shifts. Yeah.
And that's when the printer pushes it upstream to you to correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Does your printer know that you've worked in their industry?
I mean, I haven't done any print manufacturing. I've always done woven manufacturing, but that's so color specific too, because you have yarn colors and then overall fabric colors and your piece dyeing things. And so, so I haven't ever had my hands on like a high scale digital printer.
Oh, we gotta get you on. I
was going to say, which, you know,
we'll go take you someplace.
I would love to, because I mean, I'm a manufacturing geek. Like I like going to trade shows just to look at the equipment. I mean, I don't know all what it does, but I'm always impressed that some like, who would spend the time to develop this, to like make a wheel, to spin this, to make this, to do that. And so I just find it all fascinating. And I think to your point from the last video too, Shoshana, about once I understand, it's almost like once you understand the restrictions of it, then is when you can kind of open up and see like what can I do to like push the restrictions or do something different or make it, So, and that's one thing too with the printing, because as you know, like printing itself, you tend to have to print on fairly flat surfaces. And, you know, texture is so important in this world right now that we're living in. And so I try and create a lot of visual textures. And because of that, I work between, like JPEGs within Illustrator. So that complicates things even further in trying to color match. So it's not like a flat Pantone color or like a flat, you know, paint chip color. So I'm actually like pulling up the Pantone color and then trying to match my texture swatch to that color. And so
you might have to pick a lighter shade because of the you know, the diffuse reflectance that might come from the texture. So you have to pick a lighter shade to account for the actual texture of the material. That's clever.
And it gets really complicated, which on the one hand is great because it's hard to be knocked off. On the other hand, it's not the easiest thing for manufacturing because they aren't matching to something like completely like a Pantone chip that has that you can like type in an RGB number, so to speak. So
it's more challenging. But you're in New Hampshire, so I will make sure we take you to a manufacturer.
That would be fun.
That would be fun. Guys, thank you very much for continuing the conversation. Kristen, thank you so much for sharing your color experience, your tools. And Ryan, as always, we always banter back and forth. So, guys, thank you very much. This is Shoshana at colorkarma.com. Have a great day.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.